The Vanishing Twins. Since I started this webinar, many keys have come up in the system that I wanted to share with you all, because I realized how much opportunity there is here for us. So if you're noticing that you're in the mind or operating from the mind, and maybe this deadness in the system, there's health conditions that are not moving for you or not healing, there's financial blocks, there's relationship blocks which are not moving, something feels stagnant or stuck. It could be because of the vanishing twin. Now, the reason I find that there's so much resistance to this webinar is that you have two egos in the system. You're operating from, if you've a twin survivor, you're operating from two egos. So I want to explain first how the genetics work and how important it is to be conscious of genetic information and why it's so important. So we're in our biological place as the God-given right, as the child of mom. So you're standing in front of mom, and mom's behind you on the left-hand side, which opens up mom's DNA. And then you're standing in front of dad, who's behind you on the right-hand side, which opens up the keys, the access for dad's DNA, because both their DNA is in your system. And they've passed on from the ancestors the unresolved topics. So what they couldn't handle in their system, health conditions, relationship, trauma from war, starvation, was passed on to the next generation. So the next generation has a chance to resolve it, to work it in their system. Or if it's too heavy for them, they pass it again on to the kids again, to the next generation. So it's really, it's there, like it or not, it's in your system. Now, the keys for transformation and the keys for healing are also passed on to you, because the antidote in a way is in the system. So your genetics is designed especially for you, and you can handle what's in your system when it's your system. That's the key. Now, if you're taking care of mom, for example, and you put her in a child place, it means you've taken mom's genetic place, even though it's the same mom. Now you've just disconnected from dad's DNA. So now there's an overwhelmed or disturbance in the system. So you'll feel overwhelmed. The tendency to look for, the traits to look for if you're in the wrong place, is a feeling of overwhelmed, feeling stressed, feeling burdened, and feeling, that you're in this exhaustion, or you're in the mind, you're running fear, anxieties, stress. This is a good sign that you're in somebody else's system. The reason I'm talking about this is because if there was another egg in the womb, which would be a sibling, a brother or sister, who has unique, even though it's the same parents, has unique coding and DNA connection with mom and dad, which is unique for that sibling. So your brother's DNA or sister's DNA, even though same parents, it still is unique for them. And if you step into that, you're overwhelmed, because you need this direct connection in that timeline for you. So it only works when it's in your system. Now, if there was another egg in the womb, it means that usually what happens is I find that you sense that the twin is passing or getting sick, and then you give your stem cells, and then there's a point where you merge with the physical genetic place of the twin. So you're in the twin system, you're in the sibling system, you're not in your own system information, which that is an overload for your system. It's a burden. And the only way you can operate there is actually from, not from self, but from the ego. And also you're operating from your twin's ego. So if you can imagine how the twin would feel. So there's a living soul in your system that doesn't belong to you. You're in somebody else's system. So the system, every spirit is incarnating to be in their own system so they can transform in their own system. Even if that child wasn't physically here, was born into the system, but wasn't physically here, it's still important that that soul is in their own genetic place. So signs of a twin in the system: a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of fury. Because if you can imagine how it would feel if you put yourself in your twin's place, another soul's place, that soul has never been acknowledged by the parents, never been acknowledged by the sibling, never been acknowledged by other siblings, has never been asked, do you want to go into this intimate relationship? Never been asked, what do you like? Never been asked, what do you want to do today? So there's a conflict in the system. So if you imagine that you've been living your life in somebody else's car, it's literally like driving someone else's car that doesn't belong to you, with all the gifts and keys belong to that system, that person, but it's somebody else, it's a twin. So your twin can't operate from oneself. You cannot operate from oneself. The only connection you have is through ego. So the egos, two egos are in the system. Now, your ego will feel like, I am dominating this car and I'm not giving it up because this is all I know from birth. It's my birthright because I've been in it from birth. So I'm not going to give this vehicle up because this belongs to me. But actually, it doesn't belong to you. It belongs to your twin. So it's very important to become conscious of these parts or traits that may be in your system of why you're not stepping out of the twin's vehicle or body or genetic place. So this is why there's conflict in the system. This is why I find there's a lot of resistance to even acknowledge that you have a twin, or acknowledge to do the work on the twin, or acknowledge saying, I've done the work and I'm still in the car, but I'm still, because that's all I know, so I'm not giving up this car. It's almost like joyriding. So, but it's somebody else's car. So it's hard. I want to acknowledge it's hard to acknowledge you've been living your whole life in somebody else's system and that's all you know. Now, when you step out of the old familiar car, which you've been in all your life, there's a realization because it comes on a soul level, and then you start discovering yourself. It takes time to discover yourself. The twin, you have to dive deeper into. So it's not something just so fast. You have to go deeper into the system because you have to realize that there was two systems operating, but there were two egos. And you could be doing a lot of consciousness work, but you're being conscious, making your ego very conscious. But there's no results in the system because you're not in your own system. Once you go into your own system, then all that consciousness work can drop into your system. So that's the operation system. That's also we've done the first webinar already, and now we're into the second one. Now the second one is taking place on Scorpio, which is water element, and it's the perfect day. So Sunday is the 31st. The 31st is Scorpio. It's aligned with Scorpio. And that's in the ancient times, that's the time where they would say the gods would come to earth, the Calvary would come to earth to find out to clean up the system, so to speak. But actually, this date for me is very significant because this is where Sunday, we can be in our own car, our own system, and then we can resolve whatever ego parts are in our system still and resolve them finally, and then bring down who we are as spirit. So your creator can really embody on Sunday. So I invite you to just check in your system, open up awareness in your system and check to see, do you have any of the traits that I spoke about in the system about a vanishing twin? Bringing the realization is that there is two ecosystems and there's a lot of protection from going near this because it means that you're giving up something that you've been in all your life and you're going to step out of it. So that of course is scary. Of course there's resistance. Of course there's insecurity about doing that. And of course your system, part of you doesn't want to do that. It's like having a job for your whole life and you're being told it's not your job, go create another one. It's like you're starting from scratch. And yet you're not starting from scratch because you've all experienced, which you've experienced in your life of being in somebody else's system. So now on a soul level, you chose that for a reason. So now you can embody it, be in your own system and start transforming. Have a beautiful day. I invite you to just sit with this, even if you feel resistance, just feel it, give it space, honor if there's resistance in your system, honor if your mind is active, honor whatever's coming up in your system, and just allow it, sit with it for a while before you shut it away. Just sit into it and see if it sits inside, not with the mind stuff saying, it's not for me, get out of here. No, he's not talking about that again. Sit with it in your system and just feel if it resonates on a soul level. Of course, there'll be conflicts and resistance. That's normal. Observe those parts. because it wants to protect you, of course. It's normal and it's loving. Sit with it and feel in and see if this webinar resonates with you. For me, it's changed my life on every level. So it's an opportunity. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.